Well, we're excited. For people that are here for the first time for the Above Board Chamber, we want to thank you for joining us. The Above Board Chamber has been around for going on 10 years, and what we do is panels of experts that teach business topics. This topic is really important to us. It started out being ethics, and we were working on ethics, and we wanted to have people that we felt in the Above Board Chamber that were very ethical, and we were very blessed to get 5 wonderful gentlemen that are exactly that. If I had to pick 5 names of people that I would consider ethical, it would be these gentlemen. And we actually have 2 that actually won the award, which would be Michael Wynn and Theo Etzel. And so we're honored to have both of them with us today. We do a lot of different things with the Above Board Chamber. For instance, if you're a member of the Above Board Chamber, we have blogs that we give our members for free. We do press releases for free. We help them with their upcoming events. We help them in any area that we possibly can. And if we can't, we find people that can help them in our community. So we work together really hard to make sure the business community has the tools that they need that help grow their business. So what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce some of our sponsors right now. They're going to take a minute and a half, and they're going to introduce themselves and talk for a minute and tell us who they are, and then we're going to go forward and start right into the questions. If anybody has any questions they want to ask, we do have a lot already. Go down to the Q&A down on the bottom of your page and go to the chat group and let us know if you have anything you want to talk to us about. So we're going to start the program right now, and I have the honor of introducing our first sponsor, and that would be Mr. Theo Etzel. Theo, who is one of the Ethics Award winners in Southwest Florida. You want to tell us a little bit about Conditioned Air?
Conditioned Air has been around here for 58 years now, and we're full service HVAC supplier and construction and retail, serving Southwest Florida. And we have nearly 400 team members, and we are delighted to be a participant and sponsor of the Above Board Chamber, and think that the work that the people in the chamber here do is very important. And I'm very, very honored to be in the panel today with the other people on board who I admire a lot.
Well, we are excited to have you. You've been a long-time member. We so appreciate the support of Conditioned Air. And on top of that, I appreciate the air conditioning that's running in my house that's doing a really good job that Conditioned Air put in. So
I appreciate that too. I'm glad.
Thank you for that. That keeps Jeannie Sweeney nice and cool.
There you go.
Another one of our sponsors is Mr. Kevin Rain, who is a mayor for how many more months are you going to be the mayor?
5.
5 more months, and then hopefully, and I believe it's so, you're going to be our new commissioner in Lee County. So Kevin, tell us a little bit about yourself. Thank you.
Sure. So most people know me as Kevin Ruane. I'm the mayor of Sanibel. I've been the mayor for the last 11 years. But what most people don't know is that I run 6 companies, 5 in the finance platform, and we really specialize in assisting franchises and franchise lending, small business lending, not only for equipment, but for acquisitions and things of that nature. We have offices in 5 states. I employ a little over 300 people. I've been doing this for close to 30 years. So it's a delight to help people really just evolve into what they hope to be.
Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate what you do for our community. If we need any help, we call Kevin. He's the #1 man in the community to call to get things done. So thank you very much for that. Another one of our superstars is Mr. Brian Riss. If you don't know Brian Riss, then you must be sitting under a rock, because he's out in the community all the time, or he's on a commercial supporting somebody or organization in our community. So Brian, tell us a little bit about your organization.
Okay, good afternoon, and thank you for having me here. First of all, my name is Brian Rist, and I'm the chairman of Storm Smart, and this is actually our 25th year in business serving Southwest Florida. And I think a lot of people know a lot about Storm Smart, and we're the largest manufacturer of hurricane protection products in the country. But I will have to say, even different than that is, you know, I get to sit on a lot of panels, but I don't think I've ever been on a panel with a better group of people than the gentlemen that are on here today. And I was thinking about this morning on the way in, and I have the honor of knowing these guys pretty well. And Jeannie, you've done a great job of assembling an amazing group of people, excluding myself.
Exclude. I think we're going to put you right in there. We do have another sponsor, Robert, but I don't see him on, so we're missing him right now. Robert, are you out there? I don't seem to have him, so something must be a glitch somewhere. So we are going to start our program right now, and we're going to start with Mr. Michael Wynn. And we've had some questions that were prepared in advance, so we would know how we can get this program going, and we can teach the best possible ways to work on our culture of our company. And I think the culture of our company basically starts with ethics, and that's why we have these wonderful gentlemen here. First question will be from Michael Wynn. How do you think company culture should evolve in seeing the business community more as a critical stakeholder for its business?
Well, thank you, Jeannie. You know, I think if there's one thing that this pandemic has taught all of us, it's how interconnected we all are. You know, how many families, even in Collier County, who are truly vulnerable to downturns in our economy, and certainly a significant one like we've seen here. And it's really not until I think you look at the long lines of cars for meal distribution, the Collier County schools, that it really starts to kind of sink in on what it means for them to distribute 100,000 meals a week, or the importance of our community hospital and working with the broader community with antigen testing, and with some of the, and over the next couple of months, and some of what they've done with their Xenon germ zapping robots that they've been using to help businesses get back up and running. Or even just the challenge that local and independent businesses face with this pandemic, as well as natural disasters. They don't have easy access to capital. It's just a short interruption in their sales can force them to close their doors, not to mention all the not-for-profits that depend on those organizations to keep them afloat. So for all those reasons and more, I think it's more important than ever that our company culture makes sure that the community is a clearly defined stakeholder for our business. And I think it should be clear that we need to support each other in order for our community to be strong, and in order for us to all endure this and any other future crises. And one of our core values is care for your neighbor. We've been fortunate to be in a position where we could buy meals for our associates, but then directing those meals to local and independent businesses where they have, just a need to kind of, keep the doors open day to day, or even helping with care packages for the 5,000 men and women who work so well in helping us with NCH through this pandemic. And then even just recently, we had a competitor in our Port Charlotte market who unfortunately was the victim of a fire. And in the process of them relocating their business, we provided some meals for their team members. So I think it's just important that we be a champion for each other and for our community. We are truly stronger together, and we can't forget that even after we move past this current challenge.
Excellent. And your organization is known to be one of the hearts of the community, Michael. If something is needed, you're right there with the hospital, or during a hurricane or anything, you're one of the first organizations out. So we want to thank you for what you do. Brian, you have the next question. What measures have you put in place since the pandemic to protect or grow your company's culture?
Thank you, Jeannie. Thank you for that question. We all had to look at a lot of different things when all of a sudden this all kind of jumped at us. And so different than normal, we all went into kind of a work from home type of situation. And you then also had to deal with, we have a factory, so we couldn't have them work from home. And how do you balance between the safety of your employees and then your commitment to your customers, and also your commitment to your employees as far as paying them? So there was just so many questions we all had to wrestle with. And, do we stay in business, or do we close, and all of the things that you had to do. And in our case, it got well publicized, was the whole thing with the PPP money, and do you take that, or do you not take that? And so there was just a lot of questions that we never ever imagined having to deal with, that just kind of jumped out as fast. And it really became a real test for our leadership to keep everybody faced in the right direction, and keep them healthy and keep them safe. It really became a challenge. As an owner, was it better for me to just send them all home? Or was it better for me to keep them working? And how does that all work out? So there was just multiple questions we had to deal with that I don't know that anybody ever imagined we would have to deal with.
Yeah, it's a tough predicament, but we're all learning together. I think it's first time on the planet Earth that everybody was sort of even. You know, we were all in the same place.
Right.
So, Brian, you're doing a fantastic job. And we found Robert. Robert, can you hear me? We don't hear you. Let me unmute.
He's on mute. Yeah.
Okay. Can you talk
I'm
now?
here.
Hi, Robert. Welcome.
Thank you.
Robert is also one of the sponsors. Do you want to take a minute and tell us a little bit about yourself? And then we will give you the next question.
Well, besides being a technology deficient person, I'm managing partner of Clearwater Business Advisors. We are a general management and business advisory service. We've got expertise in finance and corporate can you hear me?
You do a lot of things, Robert. You know, we're just really proud to have you as part of the Above Board Chamber. Your experience in marketing and working with Disney and West House and just so many different things. And I love the way your company gets together and helps start up companies and to make sure they have the right tools so they'll be successful. And that's a great thing to do, because a lot of companies do not make it because they don't have anybody help them. So I want to thank you for what you do, because that's really, really important all over.
Great, thanks.
I'm going to give you a question right now while we have you here.
Sure.
Okay, how do corporate cultures emerge?
Well, they emerge from owners and founders and executives. And as we've read in the literature, culture is made up of values, beliefs, attitudes, behaviors, and those things don't happen by themselves. They're basically extensions of the founders and executives. And in the way that those people make decisions and they provide strategic directions really helps the culture emerge, but it's a daily thing. It has to happen every single day. So corporate cultures emerge from the owners and the founders of the business.
Yeah, exactly. Theo, you have the next question. How
Sure.
does having a remote workforce impact the company culture that was in place before this disruption? What tools have you used to keep your team together? That's a big thing. When everybody's scattered all over the place, how do you make sure they're one team and one thought and one culture?
Right. It's and Brian touched on it. All of a sudden, we went from people in an office environment or meeting environment to all of a sudden we're not together again.
Yeah.
For the majority of the team members. And so, you know, one, I think you have to have a very solid company culture going into something like this. If you don't have a good company culture, you're probably not going to develop a good company culture when everybody's scattered. So it's important that people really understand and believe in the mission and also the core values, and that they're trying to live that no matter where they are. So if they're in the office, if they're in the field, or if they're at home, they have to continue maintaining that. Part and parcel with that is, you know, I believe and the operations team at Conditioned Air, the CEO and everyone else in leadership believes in communication as a key part of keeping things together. But I can assure you that more and more communication is needed if you are not together. And so our CEO did a great job and is continuing to do a great job of sending out company-wide videos. Very simple to do on the iPhone, and uplifting messages about safety, new protocols if something was enacted as things open back up now. And we don't take lightly the risk that our people face, especially the people that have to go into homes. and the service side and installation side, our employees, we're putting them at risk by being in someone's home that we don't know their full status of health. And at the same time, we are putting a person that's on our team in someone's home. And so there's a significant trust factor there. And then there's also preparation work that we have to do for our employees so that they can do that in as safe a manner as possible, right? And so we have to provide the sanitizing, hand sanitizer, and the protective masks and the disinfectant and everything. I can tell you that Michael was certainly key in helping us secure some of that up front when it first started, and everything was a little crazy to get some of those, and I appreciate that very much. But we had to establish a new protocol to do that and communicate that and our concern for our employees, and I think that goes a long, long way.
It's amazing. People don't realize the expense, because that became an expense for your company to make sure
Absolutely.
you had all those supplies, Let me ask you a question. To keep everybody close together, when they're out, do you do more newsletters? Do you do stuff like that? Do you have more like conference calls? Do you need to do that with your team?
Yes, on the leadership side, especially, we absolutely have to communicate to all the leaders, and then the leaders, their teams, what to do, how to do it, especially if there's something that's a new guideline that has come out. But we also want them to know they are appreciated. And so we've even done things like send a tin of cookies to every family that is on our team. And it went to their home, and it went to family of. And so we want them to know it's just a little bright spot. It's just a box of cookies, but it's a box of cookies with a great message on it. Came from Tim Dupree, our CEO. And it's a caring concern type thing. And you have to keep lifting people up, because don't forget, employees are scared. Yeah. Right. They're scared. They don't, this is new for everybody. Right? It's new for us too. But as an employee, you're scared. You see economic downturn with that. Yeah. You're wondering about your own job. You don't want people to get sick. You worry about your family. School's out. All of a sudden you're maybe mommy daycare, daddy daycare, your school teacher. It's a rough thing. So yes, you have to communicate a lot, and you have to pat people on the back and lift spirits at the same time.
Well, a little sugar love with that cookies. I like that.
Absolutely.
Kevin, why is corporate culture so important in your company's success?
Great question, Jeannie. It really goes back to my dad. I learned from my dad as an entrepreneur, and it's really kind of basic principles you had. We recognize that people come to work, and it's probably 1/3 to 40% of their life they spend at work. So that environment is so important to set the tone. Dad used to do everything on a handshake. It's a different world back then. I'll always recall back in yesteryear when I was running the family accounting business, and I turned to my mom and said, "Where's Dad's malpractice policies?" She said, "He doesn't have any." When you think of today, you try to set that culture, and really that was a learning experience for me, trying to build people's confidence, trying to set the right environment, trying to lead by example with things I inherited from him. And it's really been that opportunity to make people feel comfortable. It's just not a place to go to earn a paycheck. It's something that they're part of your family. And I look at this now more than anything else during this pandemic is having 300 plus members of my family. And then when you look at the number of people we had to help, money's an interesting thing that you help with people and you help finance and you kind of guide them. It's really important to give them some type of comfort that we're going to get through this. It was really an unusual situation where across our really businesses that we serviced, each one of them were affected and shut down immediately. We were essential business, but all our businesses were shut down because our people that borrowed money from us and people that we guided were all closed, and they had a lot of anxiety. So having that culture inside your office, having the people. And we do it differently because I have offices in 5 states. So we're constantly having meetings via Zoom. We've done a lot of those technologies that people are utilizing today, because when you don't have people in one office, it's just important to continue to connect with them and make them feel part of your family. And I use the word family inside our situation. Most people know me out in the public world, serving the public, and that's just another thing you do by example. I've served this community for 13 years, and it's a joy to do so, to try to help. So I think you lead by example. I think what you do is promote just the right environment, the right atmosphere that you try to conduct yourselves. And I think everything just really evolves from there. I mean, we're proud to have people that are with us 20 plus years. The majority of my employees are with me better than 15 to 20 years. And that just doesn't happen by accident. I think you pay people well, but you make them feel like they're not going to work. It's really a career, and you help them. And you participate in little things. It's just, we have 3:30 in our office here in Fort Myers. We stop and have espresso. It's what we do. We sit down and say, okay, it's 20 minutes of, we don't do anything. The phones are going to ring, and it's kind of just to just have a disconnect. And that's what we do. So little things that you do make people know. And I heard some of the examples here during these challenging times. We had people working around the clock because we were helping people with PPP loans. We were trying to assist our customers to get rid of their anxiety and asking people to work above and beyond. And since they were more working from home, and since we do more things up in the cloud, they were working enormous number of hours. It was just amazing. My team went and were working, 60 plus hours a week. And I didn't ask them to do that, but they felt really inclined to help our customer because they were nervous, they were anxious, and their business was shut down. And how was it going to survive? And we played counselor, psychologist, and we played a lot of roles. And I think that really is the culture we've kind of done. And I give my dad really the credit for setting the environment that I kind of just followed.
That's great. This is why we have you 5 gentlemen here, because of what you do, and you don't give up. And leaders do that. Leaders don't follow people. They start their own paths and people follow them. And your employees obviously picked up from what you learned from your dad. So thank you very much. Michael, can you share your thoughts on how the importance of trust in a company's leadership has changed post-COVID-19, both with the public and with the team?
Well, certainly. Thank you, Jeannie. We've touched on this a number of times already in this video. When there's increased uncertainty in the world, when social media is not helping, but actually stirring up, in many ways, a lot of irrational fear, it is truly essential that you have trust in your business in order to be able to function. Again, as noted before, people are putting their lives at risk. They have to have confidence that you are not putting people over profit, that you're balancing the importance of protecting their lives and protecting their livelihood. And the only way that your team is going to be able to put themselves at risk and work alongside you is in what is essentially uncharted waters, is if they trust that you truly have their best interest at heart. And a big part of that is being open and transparent, involving them in the decision-making process, letting them know that you're truly listening to them and their concerns. And this also applies to the public, your customers. When we had issues with customers that maybe we weren't able to explain at the store level, I called many of them myself. And almost all of those calls turned into just a really great conversation and a great connection with a loyal customer who just had genuine questions and was sincere in wanting to know our policies and how we were protecting them. So I truly believe it all comes back to trust. When customers see that you're taking the time to listen to them, to educate them on your protocols in this crisis, it fosters trust and helps increase the odds that your business is going to be given the benefit of the doubt when customers encounter something that they don't understand, or maybe that they are questioning about your procedures. They'll give you time to explain because you built that trust over time.
Absolutely. That's good advice. Robert, you doing okay over there? How do cultures get into how do the cultures get into themselves? Like, how do we learn about our cultures? How does it get through the company?
Wow. When I first started in consulting a long time ago, I used to talk to executives about culture, and invariably their eyes would roll back and it would be a very short conversation because not very many people understood culture and how it affected business. I think when as I listen to these very successful folks on the panel, is that the cultures that they've created are things that happen every day, and it's not just one thing; it's everything. And as companies grow and they try to sustain their cultures, one of the things that I think is important is really selecting the right people for your culture. Not everybody is attuned to the culture. And so I think selection plays a very strategic role in how companies develop their culture. And even more so than the strategy of training people the right way. I think having the right people in place, it makes all the difference. And I think that's one of the ways that astute executives have of perpetuating their cultures, is to hiring the people who are really fit into the cultures, and getting them in onboarding and doing the kinds of things that reward people for the behaviors that help that culture flourish in the organization.
Very good. Excellent. Brian, as a leader, what did you do to get your company through this crisis?
Well, I don't know that it changes all that much. You in our case, and I think in everybody, these rest of our cases, we lead by example. And so we just made a lot of decisions, and we tried to do the best we could do of letting everybody know what our decisions were and why they were there. And we sought everybody's opinion, and because there's, everybody's life got a little changed. The schools were closed and daycare was closed, and how does that affect things? So you had to really listen to everybody and treat them all individually and see what the best way that would work for each one. Those of us that could work from home, we tried to be as free as we could with those people. But again, we're also a manufacturer, and that doesn't necessarily work. But a lot of the people that manufacture for us, work in our manufacturing facilities, have children, and the kids are home from school. So we had to be very, very flexible and supportive of the people that we had working for us. So I guess the real answer is everything changed, and you had to really just really focus in on communicating with everybody, staying true to what we stand for, and trying to stay as close to the mission as you possibly could, but knowing that, everybody's life was a little different and you had to deal with that. I think, everybody was saying that, there was a lot of uncertainty in a lot of things that were going on. And our job as leaders is to try to kind of calm that down and be the voice of certainty. So we did talk a lot about what would happen if we had to close down, and assure them that we were in a position where they wouldn't have to worry about paying their bills and things like that. And that helped an awful lot. And then, you had to deal with, making sure that everybody stayed healthy and safe. And so it was just a lot of different things that I had no clue we were going to have to deal with in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, it's a scary thing, but it's good that there are companies around that have the security to give their employees the security so they can work and they don't have to worry about day to day and putting that food on the plate for their families. So I commend each one of you gentlemen for what you have been doing. Theo, you're next. Do employees have different expectations now? It's a big one.
I don't know that they have necessarily a different expectation or set of expectations. I think they have enhanced expectations. I think it's the same thing they wanted, and then some, right? It's a little enhanced that way. So the care and concern that we show for people, the making sure that they had time off if they needed it, making sure that the policies were reviewed and that we had their back and we wanted them as a part of the decision. We wanted them to be informed. We wanted to be transparent. And we wanted to provide for them all the safety gear that they needed to conduct their work safely, which is not unlike what we provide if someone's going out to work today, but it was enhanced because it needed to be virus protection and those things. But the expectations that we're going to still care for them and treat them with respect and listen to them and have open door policy when we need to, all that is, we maintain that, they're used to that, but it became probably under a greater spotlight for these times. And I'm not sure that that's going to change that much going forward. I keep hearing about the post-COVID world. I tend to disagree with that a little bit. I think it's the with COVID world or with the next whatever world. And so we have to be thinking about how are we conducting ourselves now, and probably that's going to roll a lot into the future.
It seems like a lot of the companies are developing a little bit more kindness, wouldn't you say? Because they understand the value of their employees, and their employees understand the value of their positions.
One would hope, because I don't think, you know, that leads into another quick thing, and I'll try to be brief on this.
No,
but
it's okay. We got time.
People ask if, and I've been asked before, if I think crises develop character in people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm of the opinion that no, not necessarily develop character. I think if you're a person that takes shortcuts and wants to do sort of bad things, a crisis basically gives you cover to do it faster. Mm-hmm. And if you're a person that is ethical and good intentions and tries to do the right thing, then there's no reason that a crisis should make you divert from that. You have to have foundational beliefs that that's the right thing to do, and a crisis just should allow you to continue to do it that way. What I do believe a crisis does for a leader is I believe it tests their mettle of perseverance.
Yeah.
Because when you're entering something like this, just as Brian said, we didn't know this was going to happen at the beginning of the year. All of a sudden, bang, the economy goes into a coma, things are shut down, new protocols are put in place, and everybody's scrambling. Yeah. And you're going to scramble from you kind of get tossed in fast. You're not exactly sure that the decisions you're making are the right decisions. You're making the best decisions you can with the information that you're given. And you have to do that on a daily basis for as long as this is going to last. And it's going to last a while because there are financial implications, and we've seen that. Everything's sort of slowed down. Mm-hmm. And now it's going to take a longer time to come back up to speed. And so it's a grind. Mm-hmm. It is a grind. They call about the grind. Well, this is the grind, but this is where a leader develops their perseverance and their belief that they know they can weather a storm.
It's also a time where leaders are born, wouldn't you say?
I think you see people that step up, absolutely.
Yeah.
And every company has that. And I can tell you that the people represented here, their company has that, just from listening to the descriptions of what they've said. You know, those people that are they're silent giants. They get the picture of the crisis, they step up, and all of a sudden they're off doing whatever it takes and above and beyond, and they're quiet about it. And those are heroes inside those companies.
That is true, and we'll find out about a lot more as the days go on, and it's wonderful to see that. Kevin, can a good corporate culture influence a better work product?
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's really been something that we have strived for here. We think it really starts from our core team and down. Having the right attitude, having the right frame of mind, having just a positive outlook. And I've always been one that's always thought the glass is half full. And again, it permeates through your organization. Leaders really do lead, and my dad would always say that. But what you try to do is try to show people examples and try to show them a way that you go about things. So positive environment is only going to improve your quality, going to improve your product. It really comes down to, I go back to this pandemic. I looked at people that were working. I didn't ask them to work on a Friday night or a Saturday. They were working, and is why. And it's just like, well, you're working, so we want to help you, and we have a backlog, or we want to try to process. And we saw our customers hurt in a way. There was a lot of anxiety, as everybody indicated. Financially, they didn't know what their situation was. It was relatively new. Some people freeze up when you have to process information. People get intimidated. Dealing with, a government entity, with the PPP loans. I look at that example and I saw the positive aspects within our company, just taking little things and everybody stepping up. So I do believe it starts at the top, and I look at my executive team across the board, and they have always really looked at trying to create that environment, because I think at the end of the day, your company is so much better for that. And it's attitude, it's perseverance, it's mental ability, it's kindness. And you talk about that during this pandemic, but I think little things that we do when we call our customers up, I didn't give anyone a script. No one said, okay, here's what you do, but we would start off and listen to people and they'd be like, well, how you doing? So let's not get into the details just yet. Let's just have a conversation. So what's going on? Tell me what are you feeling? How many employees are out? What are you dealing with right at the moment? Like I said before, we end up becoming psychologists. We're giving people some guidance in a way, but helping them kind of bring down their anxiety. And that really is what I saw us do during this pandemic. And I was really happy to see my team works a lot independently, because as most people know, I am a CEO of multiple companies, but I'm not here much. I'm trying to help the community in other ways, but we've adapted our culture across the board. And I think my executive team creates that environment, and ultimately it comes back a full 180. It's a positive situation. They have positive energy. It really permeates through the company. Your product is much better, and people come back to you, really willingly to do so.
Excellent. Our attendees, just to let you know, if you have a question, you can go to the chat button down the bottom, and if we have time, we'd be happy to ask you a question. Michael, we have a question for you. Have you changed any of your tools or metrics you use to measure the effectiveness of your company's culture since the COVID-19?
Yeah, we've always, I think, done a good job and believe that, surveys, employee engagement surveys in particular, as well as monthly pulse surveys, are kind of an important tool to kind of measure our performance with our team and how strong our culture is performing, their overall satisfaction with their job, where they recommend us to a friend, so to speak. However, the whole COVID-19 challenge to our business, to the safety of our families that are connected with Sunshine, again, has been truly unprecedented. We haven't dealt with anything like this before. So we felt that it was important, one, to immediately get some type of measurable feedback from the team on how they feel we are doing or have done in protecting them through the pandemic. So we added a question to our monthly pulse surveys regarding the safety and protection protocols that we put in place. And so that was, great feedback and good suggestions that came from that to help us, strengthen that even going forward. We've also added an internal Net Promoter Score that has been helpful in helping us understand how leadership in our different locations have either succeeded or not succeeded in keeping their teams engaged over the last couple of months, and then helped us be able to react better in those areas where maybe, communication hasn't been as strong, or maybe, some of our messages haven't reached the team the way we'd want them to. Finally, we do a lot of communication with our team. It's always that challenge of knowing how many people are actually reading the written communication that we sent out, how many are watching the videos that we've produced and sent out, how many are watching the videos, if it's a longer video, till the end. So one of the recent changes that we made to better measure of that, and the reception of those messages, is actually using an unlisted channel on our YouTube site and posting the internal company videos through that site. And then, because Google Analytics are automatically tied to your YouTube account, we can then see how many people are watching at any given point. How many minutes did they watch the video for? What is the total viewership over time? And so I use those two examples in the engagement survey and in YouTube with video message, because I think one feeds the other. You know, the more effective we can communicate and make sure that the messaging is received, then the better engagement that we'll ultimately have, and then the higher internal net promoter score that we'll achieve, and ultimately the stronger culture that we will build.
Excellent, excellent. A lot of details, Michael. Excellent. Robert, what does the research teach us about corporate culture?
Well, you know, in preparing for this meeting, I did a lot of reading on, you know, customer expectations and saw a lot of trends emerging. But when you lay that against the COVID-19 pandemic, you have a double whammy in the research that says customer expectations are always changing, and that's the normal state of affairs. But now with the pandemic, organizations are responding to that in various ways. And what it told me was that corporate cultures, and we're talking about it with business owners today, each one of the businesses has an adaptive element to their culture. And so I think what the research is really telling us now, that if you don't have an adaptive culture, a culture that can assess, adjust, change on the fly, you're probably going to be left behind. And everybody who's spoken today is an example of a corporate culture that is adaptive. You've all adapted very well, and you've all responded to it. And I think that's what the research is telling me, that going forward, companies who have adaptive cultures are going to survive and thrive. And those companies who are not adaptive will find it very difficult to thrive in the coming months and years.
That's very interesting. I've seen it with a lot of different companies. They stopped. They just got scared, you know, and instead of just keep going and try to develop something new, even a lot of companies started new companies, new products within their company to do. Kevin's is a perfect one. He started doing the PPP, and that was not something they normally do. So companies were finding ways to be better, and that's a testimony to.
We work with a number of companies, and in talking to some of those executives, a number of those companies went from full employment and revenue coming in to zero in about 2 months. And they're still at zero, and they haven't really adapted to the new environment and thought through how to get their business back on track. And unfortunately, they're very large companies, and they don't move very swiftly. And my fear is going forward that a lot of the larger companies who are providing goods and services are going to have difficulty getting back into it because they haven't been able to adapt. And I think that's sad. And I think that's the allure of small businesses or medium-sized businesses tend to be much more adaptable and able to change as the environment changes. So I see it across the board. It's a mixed bag of who's able to thrive and survive in this atmosphere.
It's interesting. We talked about that subject a little bit in prior webinars about some companies that just stopped because they don't know what to do. So people think they closed down, so they don't call them anymore for whatever they do. So they move on to someone else. So you have to stay in contact with your customer base and your client base so they know that you are still around. So it's important that we do all these things. Brian, you are next. Did the pandemic help or hurt your business?
Well, I don't know that you could ever say that it helped anybody. I mean, a pandemic is obviously a bad thing, but the craziest thing happened in our world, and maybe in Michael and Theo's world a little bit as well. In our case, a lot of our customers would go back up north when the winter was over, and they would go back up and they'd be out of town. But all of a sudden the pandemic came and they didn't go back up north, or they didn't go to Europe, or they didn't go and do a lot of different things that they normally did to spend money. And they were looking around at each other and said, well, what do you want to do? And they said, let's spend some money on our house. So as crazy as this became, our business has like gone up almost 40% since this whole thing happened. Now, again, I wouldn't wish this thing on anybody, and that's certainly not the plan of the whole thing. But because we put ourselves in a position, and because we continue to market, and because we continue to get our message out, in reality, our business has grown.
Yeah. We've found that a lot with different businesses. I also had a conversation with a friend the other day, and she said her husband says he cannot believe all the money he saved because they were going out to eat 3-4 times a week. And all of a sudden he has all this extra money, and maybe they went and bought shutters and stuff, you know, hurricane shutters.
And I think that's true of a lot of people. You know, you would spend money on a lot of different things. A lot of people, especially the affluent people, like to travel a lot and go to Europe every year or South America, and all those things were out.
Exactly. And so they wanted to do something. So they're looking to do something constructive. And being in your house and making your house safer and look better is a good thing. And buying a new air conditioner, all that stuff, right, Theo? Good stuff. Theo, you're next. What is your philosophy about crisis and a leader's character? Does it create it or expose it? We talked about that.
Yeah.
Do you want to add on that a little bit more?
Well, what I would say, I'll say no. I don't want to add on that. I want to actually pick something that Robert said, and he is correct that smaller businesses, medium-sized businesses, in my experience, I have seen them more adaptive and faster reacting than big companies. And whether that's bureaucracy that gets in the way or anything, there is a business book. It's not a big read, and it's old. I'm going to say it's 15, 20 years old, and I forget the authors, but the title I always liked is, it's not the big who eat the small, it's the fast who eat the slow.
Yeah.
It's a picture of fish on the front of it, and I think he's exactly right. If you're not adaptive to your culture, if you're not out in the marketplace, and I know that, to follow up on Brian's comment, you know, as people were then stuck at home, right, their indoor comfort became a little more critical with housefuls of people on an everyday basis. And so while the very front end people were a little nervous about having anybody from the outside come in their house, a lot of people got over that fear when their air conditioners weren't keeping up and it became warm. And we had protocols to where they didn't have to be there if they didn't want to. And we would call them and let them know exactly where our person was and different things so that they would feel comfortable with it. But as that progressed, they wanted it cool. So, and we made sure that people knew we were still open and out there and everything. And I think that's important. And I do think that is where leadership comes in to say, maintain the story, maintain the position, and be out in front of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to ask you all a question. If you can go back to January, and I'm going to give this to Kevin first. Go back to January. If you knew this was going to happen, what would you have done differently?
Yeah, I don't know how you prepare for this, no matter what. I think many people touched on this, and what I saw is people just react. I came to Florida in 2004, 2 weeks before Hurricane Charlie. So I think that different situations, people evolve and they really show their true character. I don't know that I would do anything different. I look at my companies, I look at my employees, I look at my citizens that I represent. And I think, you know, if we could have given people some tranquility, given them some heads up that this was coming, perhaps they might have been less anxious. Perhaps they might have been less or shorter, not as short in interacting with you. Those are things that I think people, and what we try to do to offset that is, my wife would say it to me, people call me at my house and I would just start talking to them. And, it's like 45 minutes later. And she said, that took a lot longer. I said, well, the first 20 minutes, you could just hear the anxiety in people and not knowing really what it is. And looking to you, whether you're a CEO of a company or in my case, I was a mayor of a city, trying to give them some type of comfort that we're going to do everything we can to try to protect people and keep people safe. I look back now and I think we were positioned well as our company because the way we're set up, we set up by this structure and went to the, to really to the cloud early. We did a lot of things differently because the way we're set up is spread throughout the United States, and having come from the Northeast, we still have a presence up there. But I don't know that I would really do a lot differently. If I can help people and help their whole just anxiety, I would love to try to address that and let people know, because I think people in general, but walking into it, we just tried to be a calming force through the process. And in hindsight, I don't know that you prepare in my business to have 1,500 customers shut down or different locations, whether it's gyms or whether it's spas. I don't know that you can plan for that. So I don't know anything we could have done ahead of time, but I really think it comes down to trying to help them in their mental capacity and really trying to give them some tranquility and, more importantly, some confidence that it'll be all right. And I think someone said it earlier, we're going to have to learn to live with this. This isn't going away. And I think we'll adapt to this situation because we have to move forward and we have to try to find a way of being careful, being safe, but yet still moving forward, because I think it was great while we stayed in place and safer in place, but that's not reality. And that's not something we can deal with on a long-term basis, as we saw, when we first opened beaches and people would just come out. I think it's just trying to give people some confidence and some real comfort during some really trying times.
Good. Michael, what do you think you would have did, what you could have done for the store, like your stores, do you sometimes in the last 3 months or 4 months said, oh, I wish I had, or wish I did, or what is that thing?
Yeah, well, again, the real easy, obvious answer is I would have bought all the hand sanitizer I could have gotten my hands on and basically cornered the global market. But no, I think, from a supply chain standpoint, hindsight, being 2020, there's all kinds of different things that, we could have stocked up on that we wouldn't have had to put so much effort to get creative on all the different places we were sourcing things from in order to make sure we were in stock. But to kind of tie into, I think a theme that, Kevin touched on, what I absolutely would go back and potentially change is front loading training at the beginning of the year, on kind of thinking through, kind of change management, crisis management, how to, teach our leaders even more how to, kind of, really, keep their team, calm and, confident, through uncertain times, and, how they can better find ways to practice, finding kind of tranquility and, some time to really, allow their mind to kind of rest, because, through this process, and, again, Brian touched on it as well, you were going, nonstop. And so, not, our leaders, all of us, not only did we have to face the challenges with kind of helping customers, helping our team members, but then we go home to our families and they've been watching, the, news 24/7. So then you got to, calm those anxieties as well. So I think, just some leadership training and kind of helping people, kind of better do some self-care practices, having those established in place prior to a crisis would have been really helpful.
That's excellent, because going forward, as Kevin said, we don't know how long this is going to be around. So now you have things in place that are going to be able to help your entire company at the same time. So you evolve with it and be better for it. correct?
Correct.
Robert, what do you wish you knew that you could do better now? Advise your clients now.
Well, our business model really hasn't changed through the pandemic very much at all. As I think back on it now, I think you all remember when the government was throwing money at businesses, and if you applied for it, chances are you were going to get it. And you know, we applied, but we didn't really take the money. And I think when we looked at our balance sheet and we looked at our cash position in the bank and our revenue streams, we were fine. We didn't need government money. We were just rolling along just fine. But what strikes me as important going forward is up until that point, I hadn't paid much attention to the financials because we are a small business and we were doing all the right things, but we were doing it unconsciously. And I think going forward, I'm going to be a little bit more conscious about our financials because who would have ever thought that we would have a pandemic and that it was going to affect us in various ways. So I think I'm going to be much more aware of our financial position and try to mitigate that risk before it happens. And I guess I was a little scared of it all, but you know, we're fine. We're doing pretty well. Business has really not trailed off at all. But I think being prepared next time is going to force me into looking more about our financial position so that if we get into trouble, we know what to do when it happens. And I think that's probably the difference for me.
Excellent. You know, it's no matter what we go through, good or bad, there's always lessons. So lessons are good things to learn and go forward with. So we teach ourselves things during times of crisis. Brian, crystal ball, it's January 1st. You just found out a secret. What are you going to do?
Well, you know, I kind of have to agree with Kevin. I think and thought that we pretty much did what we should have done, and I don't really have any real regrets. The one thing if I could have done it a little differently, was once this all happened, we have a big sewing operation here, and so I started working with Lee Health and started making some PPE for them. But because we were so busy and because we were concerned about our people's health themselves, we didn't really do as much of that as I kind of wanted to do. So I probably, if I had one regret of this whole thing, I wish we could have helped even more than we helped. Yeah. But from a business point of view, I thought our team performed pretty well under crazy situations.
Perfect. Theo, do you have an answer to that? What do you think, conditionaire? You speaking with Tim, sitting down with Tim in January, and he just got this secret. What would you do?
Yeah, it's you know, I think that's a nice hypothetical, but I think you have to deal in the reality, and the reality is that there was so much information coming on a daily basis, really in the morning and the afternoon, and it contradicted itself. It was horrendously bad, then it wasn't going to be that bad, then everything changed on a daily basis. Extremely hard to prepare and predict for that. I liken it, not to offend any meteorologist out there, but when a hurricane is coming, depending on the channel or the weather channel that you listen to, a lot of times you hear differing views on how much storm surge there will be, or the maximum winds, or the exact path. And we know those things can't be predicted 100%. Again, this is the same thing. It's new to the scientists. It's new to a lot of people. It's new to how to deal with it on a societal basis for a pandemic. I would tell you that operationally, you know, the steps that the team took immediately was to look at sourcing, to look at supply chain. Financially, we sat down and did scenario planning. So what would happen if the following events happened, and you know, all construction was shut down at some point. What would happen if our supply chain dried up in certain areas? What's the impact? So we did do projections of financial impact so that we could get a sense of what are the things that we really need to pay attention to. And that occurred, at first when a crisis hits, especially something like this, the very first thing you're doing is you're scrambling. You are reacting because you're watching out for your people, you're watching out for customers, and you're watching out for just can we continue to do business? And then once you know that you can keep going, then you get into the meat and the nuts and bolts. And so it was several weeks in, but that's what happened. After several weeks, we started going through those scenario planning. And so that we just have a kind of a gauge of, as Robert was pointing out, watch the financials, watch the what ifs, and go from there. Be prepared.
Be prepared. That's important. We have a really good question here. And we are going to go to, who are we up to? Kevin. Kevin, I'm going to give everybody this question. We're going to start with Kevin. Have you had to deal with ethic issues during the pandemic? And if so, how did you address it?
No, we really didn't have to deal with any ethics issues. I mean, fortunately, there was really not a situation we came across. I mean, again, I think it goes back to being prepared for a situation and not letting yourself be in a situation where you wouldn't do the right thing. And I think that starts with the culture you develop internally. Our attitude is just do the right thing. I mean, that's been our attitude, not only in the city I represent, the county, but also the companies we have. It's just do the right thing. So no.
Good. Michael, I'm going to ask you the same question, and to put it out even more, it could be other people you're dealing with on the outside and stuff. There's a lot of emotions. You're buying things from distributors and different things. Did you have a problem out there anywhere? And if so, how did you deal with it?
All right, so you want me to answer that question or
both of them together?
All right, okay. So, I would say, from an ethical standpoint, I think that when you have a strong set of core values, it's at least easier in that you already have a filter process for all of your decisions. But I think what was challenging through that process is that sometimes, because of either confusing facts or rapidly evolving, knowledge with this, novel virus, that you would sometimes have two people equally passionate arguing for you to do the exact opposite thing and challenging your integrity if you didn't do what was essentially opposing actions. And so, in those situations, it's truly impossible, obviously, to make, everyone happy. But I feel like, although in some ways, because your integrity was challenged, you feel like it's an ethical question. But as you then simply absorbed as much available facts as you had, filtered that decision through your core values, and then was transparent in that decision-making process, I felt like, we were solid in always doing the right thing, even when it was a rapidly evolving, situation. And then, in terms of, kind of challenges with, outside organizations, and I would just say that, it was, we again tried to be as engaged with all of our stakeholders, including our suppliers and our supply chain, given that, this is a unique situation. We're all facing the same problem. It's not like a hurricane where it's pretty much, every other state's calling and saying, hey, what can I do to help? You poor folks in Florida, we're all dealing with the same challenge. So, we would have warehouses that would shut down because they had a positive case, or because, they were deemed a non-essential business. So we did our best to be able to reach out to them and be able to offer them help and be able to increase the communication with them as one of our key stakeholders that was important to our business.
Excellent. Robert, the same question. Have you had to deal with any ethic problems?
Well, it wasn't a problem, but it certainly was an ethical question for us. And I mentioned earlier that when the government was passing out money, we applied. And at the same time, we started to look at our financials. And we qualified to get government assistance. But when we really thought about it, and looked at the financials, we realized that we really didn't need it, even though we qualified for it. And so for us, it was an ethical question. Yes, we could have taken the money, but we couldn't. We just couldn't. We did not have the good conscience to take the money because we really didn't need it all that much. And we figured, you know, there are probably other people out there who need it more than we do. So for us, it was a question of ethics. Well, we could have, but we didn't. And I think my partners and I really felt good about that, because I suspect there are probably lots of businesses out there who took the money who didn't really need it. And I think that's not a good situation for us. So I think the ethical question was, do we really want government assistance? And in the past, having done work for the government, having government in your business is not a good thing. So we just decided it was not in our best interest to take government money.
Excellent. Brian.
Well, first, I really have to compliment you, Robert. We too made that decision. It was a very difficult decision to turn down a bunch of money. The government doesn't usually give you free money, but I'm glad to see somebody was as crazy as we were and turned it down. So congratulations to you. You know, we have a lot of employees, so we're always dealing with situations because, you know, as Michael said, a lot of times you have two people with just completely opposing views and they do it. But the real answer is nothing changes. If your ethics and your culture and the way you conduct yourself is what is core to your business and to your life, that even with a pandemic or no pandemic, yeah, you might be a little bit more sympathetic, but right is right and wrong is wrong. So we would just simply still boil it down to what's right and what's wrong, and that's how we address things.
You know, when I was a little girl, I don't know if you gentlemen remember this cartoon, there was an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other shoulder.
Right.
And the little cartoon character would be influenced by both ones. And it continues as we get older. We just don't see the little angel and the devil anymore. But we know inside of us what's right and what's wrong. And that's the most important thing when we go forward and we run a business is what's right. And you know it. I don't know, but I have a physical reaction. You know, I feel it. If something is not right, I know it immediately. And as business owners, we need to listen to that. We need to do what's correct, because at the end of the day, when you put your head down on the pillow, you need to know you did the right thing. Theo, do you want to add to this?
I would say that I don't think we had, that I'm aware of, that we had any real ethical issues. I know that we had a decision that came up, as everybody knows, season was well in progress when all of this really hit. And in season around here are a tremendous number of galas and sponsorship opportunities and things that you've committed to prior in the year or sometimes in the fall, that the event isn't going to happen until the spring, and they're for nonprofits and charities that we support. And you know, basically it came down to that all those things got canceled, but the charity still needs their money. And so, it would be the easy out is to say, hey, it's an uncertain world out there. We need the cash. We're going to hold off and not honor any of those things because we don't get the mention at the event. And for us, it really wasn't about the mention at the event. It was, we've supported these charities for years and we really like them. And I mean, it's part of us. So we honored that commitment as a pure donation. And that's not to, I'm not trying to say this as self-righteous, but we thought that was the right thing to do, given the nature of the fact that they would have no other form of monetary support, basically going forward, since they had missed that entire season.
That, I had that same thing. I'm not a big company like you, but I did the same thing. I donated to a couple of our nonprofits, and they called me and they said, you want your money back? I said, absolutely not. You have it. It's for you. They need to get paid. And sometimes we forget about our nonprofits. We think, you know, they're going to be fine. They're not fine. You know, if we do have that extra money out there, find them and figure out ways to help them. And you may not have the money, but you know what? You could pick up the phone and say, how can I help you? And it could be phone calls for them. It could be lots of different things. So we need to keep them in mind, our nonprofits, what they do. Gentlemen, I'm going to ask each one of you right now if there's anything that you want to share that I did not ask you or somebody else did not mention during this webinar. And if you could just take a minute or 2 minutes and tell me a little bit more that about all that's going on and you want to share more. Michael, you want to go first?
Sure. I tell you, I'll take my time, because I don't think we've answered this one question that came in regarding, the question was, you know, how do you feel this new environment affects an entrepreneur who's attempting to buy into a partnership of an already established business? You know, would it delay the decision or your buy-in? And so, you know, I would say that it would really depend. If I'm buying into, I mean, one, you have an existing business, so you have the advantage of being able to see how they've been impacted by, you know, COVID-19. So I would use that information to help guide my decision. 2, I'd ask a lot more questions. It wouldn't necessarily stop me from moving forward, but is it a restaurant? You know, have they adapted and, you know, have the changes they've made, you know, been responded to well by customers? Is it a technology company where maybe there's now increased opportunities and advantages? So to answer, I think Emilio's question, I'd say that wouldn't necessarily stop me, but I take the opportunity to ask more questions since, you know, I now have that opportunity that I haven't maybe already been 100% committed to have to go forward.
Perfect. Brian?
You know, the one thing that it just seems to be common of all these gentlemen and the things we're saying is, you know, is to, if you're going to be in business and you want to make your business sustainable, get involved in the community, get involved in the different things, whether maybe you're not in a position where you can give a lot of money to a charity right now when you're just starting out. But like you just said, Jeannie, there's other things you can do. You can make phone calls. You know, the one lesson that I've learned and I've certainly got from these guys a lot is, you know, this whole giving thing is a very, very amazing thing. And it just seems like the more you give for the right reason, the more that things come your way. And if I could encourage anybody who's starting out or is new at this thing, get involved, think about giving, and it doesn't have to be money. It can be time or energy or your product or something, and watch what happens. It really, truly is amazing.
Brian, that's excellent, but I also want to jump back a little bit what you said. I didn't realize that you were making face masks for the hospitals.
Yeah, we did.
So how did you get into that?
Well, you know, you try to do anything and everything you can. And we have all the same equipment that the people who are making PPE have. So we, when it all started happening, again, I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to install in people's houses and all those things there. So I talked to, I know a lot of people at Lee Health, and we tried to see what we could do to help them. Unfortunately, well, I don't know if it's unfortunately, but we got so busy doing what we need, our core business, that we really couldn't do as much of that as I wanted to do. But, you know, we had to deal with our customers first because we were obligated to them. And obviously I had to think about our employees and keep them as safe as possible. So, you know, you try to do whatever you can to make this world a better place.
Exactly, and thank you. And Michael, you've got to keep that in mind. If you run out of supplies, give Brian a call there.
All right, there you go, Michael.
Kevin, what do you want to share? We got time here. What do you want to share that's...
You know, I go back to, and I think Brian touched on it, and many people have, I do believe things come back tenfold. You know, we started from pretty humble beginnings when I look back. And, you know, it's always anxiety when you go into business for yourself. I left corporate America, used to all the benefits and everything that was going along with it. And there was an opportunity to try to get into a situation. And it was a significant change, not only in pay, but just the environment that I was used to going to every day. I mean, again, managing hundreds of people, flying around the United States, it really changed dramatically. But I look back and, you know, giving to others has really been what my dad taught me. And I came down here and, listen, I've been a volunteer for 13 years and hopefully people in August elect me to be a volunteer again, because it really isn't about a paycheck. And I've always said that. It's about giving back to the community. And it's been an honor to serve this community. And hopefully I have that opportunity for 4 more years.
Well, knowing you pretty well, Brian, I don't know if everybody knows that when you did move to Southwest Florida, you came to Sanibel and you just started volunteering and nobody knew who you were. And look at you now. So it's amazing how you can find your gifts by giving.
Absolutely. Jeannie, I look at that and, that situation was one, I sat on the other side of the desk as an executive paying claims, but I never really was on the side of watching the devastation. And, your instinct just takes over. And I remember raising my hand in the Holiday Inn and saying, how can I help? And, I've been helping since. My partners here many times say, when do you not put your hand up? And I'm like, it's just a natural instinct that you do. And it feels great. Like you said, you wake up every morning, you look at the guy in the mirror, or the girl in the mirror.
Yeah.
And I like that person.
And that, you know what, that's the most important thing at the end of the day, that you made a difference. And I talk about that often with different people, find that thing that you can do. And a lot of our meetings, at all my meetings, actually, I always tell people that God gives us gifts when we come into the world, but they're not gifts till we give them away. And
Absolutely.
Listening to each one as we're speaking and as we talk about how we do that, you're just brightening up all your faces, because that's where the joy is in giving. Robert, do you want to share something with us too?
Well, sure. Being a consultant, I've been in the business of helping companies develop and shape their cultures. So I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly for sure. What strikes me is something that goes overlooked, and I would bet that the panelists would agree with me on this. If you want your employees to go above and beyond the call of duty and really do well with customers, and that you see it every day, it really takes a lot of physical energy for employees to do that. Mm-hmm. You can't go above and beyond and be highly engaged if you're tired. Yeah. And you've got a poor outlook. And so my observation is that companies who really think about the energy level of their people really understand what it's all about. And Michael, I have to tell you, I hang out at your hardware store a lot, because that's who I am. And your people are all over the place. So it does make a difference when your people are enthusiastic and they've got the physical energy. They will do anything to help a customer. And I suspect that the companies represented on the panel, you probably, when you think about it, realize that your people are energetic and they have the physical energy to do the kinds of things that you expect of them from a customer service point of view. And I think that's often overlooked, is the actual physical health of the people who are actually doing the work. So I always try to look for that when I go into companies and ask questions and kind of see what's going on.
Very good. Theo?
So I'll leave you with a couple of observations, thoughts that I have. One on leadership, and that is that if you really want to be a successful leader, and I think you've heard this today, but for anyone out there listening, put others first and be willing to serve, because you can't be a real leader if you're not willing to serve others. And it's a people business. I don't care what business you're in, it's still people and people. So people matter, people behind the company matter, but to be a leader, you have to serve those. And then the thing I've noticed through a lot of different little crises going back 25 years now, every hiccup that we've had around here, whether it was 9/11 or the Great Recession and now this, as people run into a financial anxiety, customers run into that, they looked for increased value out of companies. What you deliver better be a value, because they value their money more. So doesn't mean the price has to be cheap. It doesn't mean all that. It means that the value for what they're paying for has to be right up there. And I don't think and typically that bar doesn't just all of a sudden come back down once the crisis is over. It sets new expectations for customers. So
Absolutely.
be a value to people and provide a value to your customers, and they'll keep coming back to you.
And we all grow. We all grow through that. You know, I always tell people you can't
Right.
be a leader without followers, and you can't be a follower without leaders. So basically it's equal. We all need to work together. I just want to thank our panelists, and I want to thank all of our sponsors for supporting this program today and the people that attended. We do have some meetings coming up. Next week, we have on the 18th, Meet the Candidate. We're bringing in all the people that are running for Congress in our area, and there are a lot of them. And we want to let people have the opportunity to hear about them and see them and find out what they're about, because I think this is an important time. And then we have our webinar on the 25th, which are new webinars that we're doing once a month, and it's on cooking. And what we're doing is we're bringing in 3 top chefs in Southwest Florida, and it's just $15. We send you to your menu. We send you all the items that you need to purchase, and then you go take your computer or your iPad, you go in your kitchen, and you cook right beside one of the top chefs in Southwest Florida. And we had a ball last week when we did it. We had people learning how to make pasta and all kinds of things. So it's a great opportunity just to let everybody know this webinar, along with all of our webinars, are sent to all the people that are part of it. So everybody will get a copy of it. So if you had to take off and you couldn't listen and you wanted more information, you will be able to get a copy of this webinar. And on top of the Above Board Chamber, I'm just blessed to have each one of you as part of the Above Board Chamber, because we are growing, and maybe we're growing a little differently, but we need to stay out there. We need to show people that good things can happen. And our world there's a lot of positive things, and there's a lot of positive people, and we need to surround ourselves with those people, and we need to trust God that He knows what He's doing. He knew all these things were coming. And I said to somebody the other day, you know, the virus separated us, but the marches put us together, brought us together. So it's very interesting, the things that God is doing. So God bless each one of you. If I can do anything for you, let us know. If you're on here for the first time, thank you for joining us. We hope you learned some wonderful things from these amazing gentlemen that just are pillars in our community, and we're just as blessed to have them at the Above Board Chamber. So we wish everybody a great day, and God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeannie.
Thanks, Jeannie.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Jeannie. Thank you, everybody.